am first going to speak about the present, and then progressively I'm going to speak about the future. Because if I speak only about the future, you will find that what I say is not useful, because you are not going to see what you can do with it. So I will begin with something that you can do something with, okay? And especially the people who work in the educational fields. I will speak first about learning, teaching, and so on. So I will start from the point where we are. I mean, everybody is, or almost everybody is connected on Orkut, on Facebook, on Twitter, and so on. Everybody has access to Wikipedia. We are all interconnected, but there is a huge flow of information, and we are not sure about what we can do with this immense sea of information. So I think that the first goal is to learn to have a responsible attitude in front of this flow of information. It is a new situation, because before the current state of affairs, before the digital medium, there was I don't know, churches, schools, media that manage the flow of information, that create the information and send it to you and say to you, this is the truth, you can believe this, you can build your knowledge from this and this and this. So there is less, in the past there was less than today this problem of the responsibility of learning and of choosing which information is good for you. Okay. So I call this the problem of personal knowledge management. The first step of the personal knowledge management is attention management. You have to define your interests. You have to choose your priority, to define your priorities. You have to describe for yourself what is your area of expertise and what you want to learn. This should be done explicitly. Okay, this is the first step. If you don't know what you want to learn, you will go nowhere. Okay. So once you have defined what you want to learn, you have to stay focused, because the new environment is very distracting. There are a lot of information popping up every time, okay, and from everywhere. So you have to trust your own choices and keep your work inside what you have defined, what is your priority. Focused. And of course, you have not to stay focused uniquely. You have also to open your mind a little bit to understand the big picture, to understand the context, to understand the movement of the world around you, the evolution of culture. Okay? This is attention management. The second step is based on the first step. The second step is the connection to valuable sources. I am speaking about sources, not about platforms or media. The environment is multi-platform, multimedia. I don't care about the platforms. What is important is the source. The sources are the people and the institutions. Okay? And these people and institutions can express themselves on YouTube, on Twitter, on their blogs, everywhere. Okay? The choice is the choice of the people. Who are you going to trust? What institutions are you going to trust? You decide. You decide. Okay? There is no outside or higher authority that can say this is good and this is bad, this is true and this is false. You have to learn to feel, to recognize, to perceive what is relevant for you and what is not relevant for you. The third step is to gather all the flow of information that is coming from the sources that you have chosen. The sources that you have chosen from the definition of your priorities and so on. Okay? So you gather all this information and then you filter. You have already filtered the sources, of course. But what is coming from the sources, you have to filter again, because you have redundancy, you have some information that are not quite relevant for you, and so you have to filter again. This notion of filtering is very important. You have different kinds of automatic filtering, like social recommender systems, or a social filtering system like you have, for example, on Amazon and on other, you have this on Facebook also. You know, the platform is recommending to you such book or such person because it says that this is close from your interest and so on. But you have also to do the filtering manually, let's say, with your own mind. The fifth step is categorization, because categorization or classification or organization. If you don't categorize the information, you are not going to remember it. Memory is based on categorization. Okay? And you categorize not only for you, you categorize also for others. What was previously the work of specialists, like librarians, for example, or people specialists in documentation, they were organizing the documents and cataloging it and classifying it. Now this relies on you. This relies on us. It's not only that we are all authors and all readers and all journalists, we are also all librarians. Okay? This is the new situation of the new state of collective intelligence. So there are a lot of systems to categorize. Tagging is very common, or hashtags on Twitter. I'm not going into the different kinds of categorization, but it is a very important step. Once you have categorized, you have to record the information for long-term memory. For example, you can register interesting websites on Delicious or other social bookmarking sites. You can use platforms like Zotero, or like Evernote, or like Mendeley, or like Site-You-Like. Some of these long-term memory platforms, or information organization platforms, are specially designed for researchers and academics. So I encourage you to use this and to teach this to your students. All these long-term memory systems are at the same time personal and social or collective. So you participate to the organization of the memory of large group of people, okay? And you benefit from the organization of information made by all the people that are using the same platform as you. Okay. Once you have done all this job, you can make a synthesis. For example, you write a blog post, or you improve an article on Wikipedia. Okay. Because you learn really when you have made your own synthesis for yourself with your own words. Okay? And at the same time, when you are doing this, you are doing useful synthesis not only for you, but for other people. And also you are entering into the conversation, because your blog post or what you have written on a wiki is read by other people. And you can signal this blog post, for example, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Orkut, and all the social media. And the conversation begins. People are responding, and you are responding to the responses, and so on. So you have a kind of creative dialogue. And you have also a feedback about your synthesis. So you see, usually the feedback is given by the professor. Here, the feedback is given by the social environment, like in the real life. And once you have done this, you go back to the first step. Are my priorities really relevant? Have I defined my interests in the right way? Are the sources that I have chosen the good sources? Is there other interesting sources? I can cancel some subscriptions, or I can unfollow some people or defriend some people. The aspect of defriending or unfollow is as important as following or being friend. Okay. So this is the personal management cycle. This is the personal responsibility of the person, if I say so. I insist here on the personal aspect because usually people think that I believe that collective intelligence is something that is above us all, but not at all. It emerges from the interaction of personal cognition, okay, of personal learning, of personal communication. Then you have collective intelligence. The basis is personal. Now, I would like to speak about what we could call a kind of collective intelligence game, or what is a social knowledge management cycle. Here, I am describing the interaction between the personal knowledge management cycles. And this interaction can be described by three movements. I will begin by the third, the circular. As you can see on the slide, there is a conversation that is happening between the people. This is the circle. This is the civilized, creative conversation. I say civilized because if it is not civilized, you don't learn. So you are not going to insult anybody, and when you are expressing one view, you are trying to argue in a rational way, or you are trying to point to data or to sources. So you are trying to be to prove your point, okay? And other people also are going to try to prove their points. Okay? This is a civilized conversation. And in this civilized conversation, we are all helping each other. Okay? It is a reciprocal social process where we help other people to learn and where other people help us to learn. Sometimes in a critical way, or sometimes in sending us positive feedback, or directing our attention toward something that we didn't know, and so on. The other movement, another movement, is the centripetal movement. Here I mean, I am going from a situation where I don't know, or maybe I know something but in an implicit way. I know this in my reflexes, in my body, in my habits, but I cannot explain, I cannot share it, I cannot transmit. So I work to make this implicit knowledge explicit, and to put this explicit knowledge into a common memory, something that can be shared. Okay, and this is what is at the center of the. So maybe I can. Go here. You see the outside of the circle, it is black. This means that it is either ignorance or implicit knowledge. Inside the circle, it is white. It is it is emitting light. Okay, because it is something that can be received by everybody. So you have on the circle people working to augment the common memory by creating software, of course open source software, by creating tools, by creating platforms, but also by adding data, and of course metadata. The metadata are about the categorization, the classification, the organization of this memory. And not only the categorization, but also the assessment, the evaluation. Is it good? Is it useful? Is it relevant? Or is it not relevant, not interesting, not useful? Everybody is participating to the construction of this common memory. So this was the second movement, centripetal. And the third movement is centrifugal, because ultimately the goal of this common memory is to help people, individuals, persons to learn. Okay? and to incorporate the knowledge such as the knowledge becomes implicit. It becomes in the body, in the reflexes, in the habits of the people. So you have this direction and this direction, and all this is working because of the collective learning that is using a civilized, creative conversation. So this is the general rule of the collective intelligence game, okay? Or the general rule of the collective learning, and that all learning is collective anyway. So this is the theory. This is what we should do. And you see that it is completely independent from any platform. It's a process. It's a kind of cognitive process. But this way of functioning is not so easy, because we have a lot of separations that prevent us of having a common explicit memory, because we use, in our multimedia data, we use different languages, as we can see now. And even worse, we use different semantic metadata systems. It is as if in one library, instead of having one cataloging system, you have 10,000 different and incompatible cataloging systems. So the library is a mess. And this is the current situation on the internet. So how can we achieve a really efficient social knowledge management? Or what could be the very abstract platform of the future collective intelligence games? So this is the way I see the evolution of the digital medium. As you can see, the first layer is occupied by the very notion of computer. Okay. First, we need automatic symbol manipulators. This is the basis of the digital medium. And these automatic symbol manipulators are based on the addressing systems of the bits inside the long-term memory of the machines. Okay. I mean the hard disks. What is managed by the operating systems. Every bit has a precise address. And the computer is taking the bits, transforming them, and then replacing them in the memory. This is the basic process of the automatic symbol manipulation. This is the first step. And it has been achieved in the 50s of the last century. The second step is the networking of all the computers, the networking of all the automatic symbol manipulators. This networking has, of course, a hardware aspect, but for me the most important is the abstract software aspect, and this is the addressing system of the network, and the addressing system of the network is the Internet protocol. So the basis of the Internet is an addressing system that gives a precise address to each computer. Okay? And then all the computers can exchange data. And they can behave as a kind of society of computers working to the service of the society of humans, of course. At the time where the internet became the common addressing system of all the computers, there was also another transformation. The computers became more and more little, and it was the emergence of the personal computing. So at the same time, there was personal computing and interaction between all the computers. And so the internet became, potentially or virtually, the new medium. Okay. The third layer is also a layer of addressing. But this time, it is not the addressing of the bits, it is not the addressing of the computers, it is the addressing of the documents, of the pages, of the data. And this is the invention of the World Wide Web. You see that the web is one layer above the internet. And the addressing system is called HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And it is because every page has an address that you can draw a link between one page and another page. Okay? Without this addressing system of the pages, you cannot hypertextualize all the data that are in the internet. So this is a very important step. And from this step, there was the creation of the global multimedia public sphere that we are currently experiencing. But we still have problems. The collective intelligence is still not as efficient that it could be. That's why, and here I'm going to speak about the future, I think that the digital medium is not completely achieved. You have seen that each layer emerged at one particular time. It's an evolutive process, okay? And each layer takes advantage of the presence, the existence of the preceding layers. And I don't see why this will stop. Okay. So I think that there will be another layer. And I think that the next layer will be an addressing system of the concepts, not of the data, of the metadata, of the meaning of the data, of the way we organize or we classify or we categorize the data. Okay. And it can be, this next layer can be useful only if it is a universal addressing system, of course. I know that this looks or sounds very strange, and I know that a lot of people are afraid by this perspective, exactly like a lot of people were afraid by the internet and also were afraid by the World Wide Web. Nevertheless, I think that if we achieve if we realize, if we build together this new layer, the collective intelligence will be much more powerful than it is now. So, you see, instead of uniform resource locators, and of course there will be always uniform resource locators, the web will always exist, okay? Like the internet will always exist, like the computers will always exist. I am speaking about a new layer, not something that is replacing something else, something that is adding to what currently exists. So this new layer, in this new layer, the addresses are called uniform semantic locators. As on the web, they are called uniform resource locators. Okay. The semantic locators, because what I am addressing here are the concepts. It seems almost impossible. But if we were able to address precisely any new concept that we create, and if we are able to make, for example, the union of two different concepts, and if we are able to do the intersection of two different concepts, and if we are able to measure the semantic distance between different concepts, and if we create a kind of geometry that describe constellations of concepts, if we are able to generate automatically semantic circuits where we can inject a kind of semantic current that mimics or simulates the collective intelligence, you see that we can create a kind of, it's not a global brain, it's more a global mind. Okay, the global brain already exists because the brain is something that is material. So we already have the material. What we are lacking is the unifying symbolic system. But it will not be like a natural language. It will be much more powerful than the natural language. Like a kind of mathematics, but not a mathematics that describe arithmetical or geometrical operations. A mathematics that describe semantic operation, the operations of the mind. So now I am going to speak about what we will get from this new addressing system. I call this computational collective intelligence. Computational because collective intelligence is something that is very, very old, that already exists in the animal realm. Ants have collective intelligence, bees have collective intelligence, pack of wolves have collective intelligence, baboons have collective intelligence, humans have collective intelligence, and of course the human collective intelligence is much more powerful than the animal collective intelligence because of the language, okay? Because we are symbol manipulators. And I prefer symbol manipulation than language, even if it's the same thing, in fact. But language can, maybe you can interpret it like it's just linguistic. But symbol manipulation extends the power of the human mind to the music, to the art, to the I don't know, to philosophy, law, religion, and so on. Okay, it's the symbolic world created by the humankind. So this is the collective intelligence. It already exists. The goal is to augment this human collective intelligence by the use of the digital medium, by the careful and thoughtful use of the digital medium. So, first I'm going to speak about the bottom of the slide. Our cortical intelligence, or our natural intelligence, works by the dialectic between our embodied sensory motor animal intelligence, what is called here the sensory motor personal data, the implicit knowledge. So a dialectic between this kind of intelligence and the discursive intelligence, the symbol manipulation. Because, of course, the symbol manipulation, the discursive thought, does not exist without an interaction with the sensory motor intelligence. Okay? It works always together. It does not exist without the other, okay, in the human mind. So, and thanks to this dialectic between implicit and explicit knowledge, between animal and symbolic knowledge, we are able to ask questions, to dialogue, to tell stories. No animal is telling stories. No animal is going to say, in 3 weeks I am going to go back in Canada, and so, no, it's impossible. You cannot tell a story. But we tell stories all the time. It's this way that we describe our own personal and collective identities. So it is this world of questions, because you don't ask questions if you are not conscious that you don't know something. So we know that we don't know because we use language. Okay? We dialogue, so we recognize that someone else is thinking differently than we think, and we try to understand. This is dialogue. And we tell stories. Okay, we make connections between actors and actions and circumstances, semantic connections. We tell stories. So what we have to augment is this intelligence, the intelligence that is able to recognize its own ignorance, the intelligence that is able to dialogue, the intelligence that is able to tell stories. Okay. And this intelligence, we want to augment it with what we have now and what we didn't have earlier, the digital medium. And what is the digital medium? An extraordinary power of data recording and an extraordinary computing power. And now I'm going to the digital hypercortex, what is at the upper side of the slide. What is on the web can be compared to the sensory motor opaque data. Okay, it is a hypertext, but it is an opaque hypertext because the addresses of the documents have nothing to do with their meaning. That's why it's like a telephone number. Okay, it's like a geolocalization. It's not something that gives the meaning to the data. Our general way to address multimedia data in the semantic space is to use natural language. But natural language is not computable. So it cannot be used at the level of the digital medium. That's why what I see as the next step is a meta-language or a symbolic system that is fully computable and will be fit for the startup of a dialectic between implicit and explicit, a dialectic of collective intelligence at the level of the digital medium, fit for the organization of and interoperability of collective intelligence games. And this way, all the different collective intelligence games will be able to share functions, algorithms, data, metadata. And of course, the real engine of all this process of collective intelligence is the creative conversation. And as you can see on the slide, the creative conversation emerges from the cortical cognition and organizes the hypercortical cognition, and of course receives information from the hypercortical cognition and re-embody this information into the cortical cognition, and so on. It is a cycle. Okay? Is it okay? Not too complex? You follow? Good, good. Now breathe. I say breathe because we have to go back to the presence. Okay, we are here. We have this beautiful warm weather. We have our friends around us. We are here. It's now. Okay, here and now, the presence. And I want you to be very attentive. Okay, from this presence, two currents are emerging. The first current, we know it is the time, the sequential time, where there is the past, the present moment, and there will be the future that does not exist, and of course the past does not exist anymore. Okay? It is the sequential mathematical time, and with this time comes the space, I mean the geometrical space where the matter, the real things are located. Okay, this is the cosmos, the four-dimensional, relativistic, quantic cosmos, the cosmos of the described by the physical science. Okay, and it comes from the presence because, again, the past is not there. and the future is not there. It's something that is created by human cognition, okay? But you have a second flow, a second direction that is emerging from the present, and it is the memory. The memory where we remind our own lives, the memory when we remind our collective adventure, the memory where we remind the history, okay? And this memory is not really organized by a four-dimensional space-time coordinate system. The memory is organized by a kind of semantic system. Okay. The things in the memory, if I can say, the ideas in the memory are organized by their meaning and by the connection of these meanings. Okay. So it's another universe. But both universe, the universe of the meaning, the universe of the memory, and the physical universe are connected by what? By the being, by the presence, by something that is neither in the memory nor in the space, neither completely in the meaning, neither completely in the matter. It is the human experience. Okay. So now we can make distinctions inside these two, let's say, the phenomenal world and the noumenal world, the worlds of ideas and the worlds of things or bodies. But we should not forget that no one exists without the other. Okay? It is the mind that computes the real material world. And without real material worlds, there will be no mind. Okay? Because the mind is embodied. So there is an interdependence between the two. What is, for me, there was one very good news in the past, and I see a very good news in the future. The good news in the past is that we have been able to build a scientific knowledge of the material cosmos. What is a scientific knowledge? It is a knowledge that is based on computable functions, okay, that uses a common coordinate system, that uses common measurement systems, that emerges from a collective conversation, the collective conversation of the scientific community, a knowledge that is constantly evolving, that it is a process, okay? And this process of collective cognition creates progressively a scientific knowledge of the phenomenal world, okay? Now, and this phenomenal world have certain characteristics. For example, it is unique, it is infinite, and there is it is full of complexity. And when you explore this complexity, you find new complexity. And when you go to the new complexity, you find again new complexity. Okay? You have auto-organizing systems that are interacting, and this interaction creates new layers of complexity ad infinitum. Okay. This is the way we can look at this phenomenal world. Now, I think that in the future, there will be a scientific knowledge of the noumenal world. Okay, what is in blue on the slide? I mean, it will be a kind of unique and infinite nature that could be described by computable functions, and that will contain complex self-organizing systems like personal management systems and collective intelligence games that will exchange information, interact, and so on. And all this will create a world of infinite complexity that could be explored further and further, always new complexity. Okay? But knowable, but describable by computable functions. Okay. By the use of the digital medium, we will be able to create this new science. In fact, we can consider the humanities and social sciences today like was the alchemy before the scientific revolution. Okay. Because the scientific revolution has bring to the alchemy a common meta-language, computable functions, common protocols from which the scientists were able to build the scientific knowledge, okay, with a real progress. Today, we are not at this stage in the humanities and social sciences. But I think that in the future we will be able to achieve such a thing, such a scientific revolution. As the scientific revolution for the phenomenal world was based on the printing press, I think that the scientific revolution for the world of the mind will be based on the digital medium. So in fact, you can think about these two worlds that are absolutely inseparable, that are completely interdependent, as the relation between the mirror and the image. You have no image without mirror, and you cannot see the mirror if there is no image. So the mirror is the noumenal world, and the image is the phenomenal world. You have no concept without any sensorimotor data. Okay. And in the human experience, you have no sensorimotor data without any concept. Okay? Everything makes sense, even in a strange way sometimes. So I think that we are going into toward a kind of self-reflexivity of the human collective intelligence, a self-reflection that will use the digital medium as a kind of scientific observatory. But what is interesting is that the scientists, the scientific community that will look through this new observatory will be everybody, in fact. And what we will observe in the hypercortex, in the scientific observatory of the hypercortex, is the image of our own collective intelligence. Thank you.
Para receber mais conteúdos relevantes como este, deixe seu like e se inscreva no nosso canal.